Good evening, everyone. A little bit belated start of the May Caribou Planning Board meeting. I call the meeting to order at 5:43. We need first to review the minutes from March 12th. Then while we're at it, Denise, please record for the record that there was no April meeting. Anyone have any comments on the March minutes? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move we accept the minutes as presented.
Thank you, Frank. Frank and Drew. Okay, all in favor? See any hands up on the telephone? I can't see everybody. Okay. That's approved.
Didn't we say we were going to go to roll call on votes?
Everything has to be done by roll call.
Oh, all right, excuse me, we'll do that then.
Yeah, I thought I remembered us talking about that.
Mr. Bagley?
Yes?
Yes.
Drew?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Amanda?
Yes.
And I vote yes, that makes 5. Okay. Thanks for that reminder. I'm not used to public hearings over the phone. Speaking of public hearings, the next thing on our agenda is a public hearing for Caribou Solar Power LLC. They would like to do a rather large solar array up on a large parcel on Washburn Road, just past I forget the name of the company, but they process broccoli all summer.
Emerald Valley Ranches.
Thank you. This process requires actually 2 meetings, the first of which will be a concept review, which is a little bit less formal than a site design review. Hopefully, we'll glean enough information from the concept design review so that we can do the full-bore site design review at the June meeting. But the hearing, therefore, is a 2-month hearing. It opened now, and it will stay open until such time as we make a decision in June or later. My understanding is that some folks have put in some comments on this. Is this the right time to?
Certainly. We did receive three phone-in comments. One from Mr. Plord, Bob Plord, was more interested in who exactly Caribou Solar Power LLC was, so who the principals were. And I informed him that the principals were Sean Pelletier and Carl Soderberg. Then he inquired how to invest in these projects, and I said I had no idea yet to talk to those fellows. We also heard from Andy Ayer, who had questions. Of course, his operation, his broccoli packing operation, is right next door. Mm-hmm. And he was concerned that dust from vehicular traffic through his property would affect their project, so the dust getting on the solar collectors. And he said he was going to call the principals directly and talk to them.
Talk to them, yeah.
The third phone call, the left no name. Again, they were just curious as to who was running the operation. So, and I informed them it was Sean Pelletier and Carl Soderberg. The letter that I received today, dated May 13th, 2020, to Caribou Planning Board, 25 High Street, Caribou, Maine. Members of the Planning Board, the purpose of this letter is to support of the use permit application for the Caribou Solar LLC to construct a solar array on tax map 7, lot 32 at 192 Washington Street in Caribou. Emerald Valley Ranches LLC is a large fresh broccoli producer in Caribou. Our cooler is located at 166 Washington Street, east of the subject property, with an access road right of way between the two properties. During shipping season, July through October, this entrance handles over 1,000 refrigerated tractor trailer units used to ship our product to the East Coast markets. Additionally, over twice that number of farm trucks with harvest trailers bring broccoli in from the fields to be cooled and packed with ice prior to shipment. I have met with the principals, Caribou Solar, Sean Pelletier and Carl Soderberg. As a result, I feel this development will have no effect on my ability to transport or ship our broccoli crop. Additionally, as a previous owner of a subject property and an area farmer, it's my opinion that the solar array is the highest and best use of this property. Lastly, Sean and Carl are local businessmen, substantial employers and taxpayers, and continue to invest in our community, making Caribou a better place to live and to do business. Their continued investment here at home deserves all our support. Thank you all in advance for your thoughtful consideration of this application. Andy Ayer.
Thanks for reading that. It's nice to hear good local support. There, in the site design review application package, there are two stages. One is the concept review, and one is the detailed site design review. Tonight, I would like to deal with the bullet points on the concept review, as to point out what, if any, and there may be some, further information is needed before we can do a complete site design review, presumably a month from now. Says, any board members have any comments on what's needed or what's missing?
Is this going to be a public hearing?
This is a public hearing.
Okay. Did you open it?
No, because I'm foolish. The hearing is open.
I had it being opened at 5:45, is that?
Oh,
That's
I must
fair.
I must have missed it.
No, you didn't.
Oh, I didn't say the words, the
I'm trying
hearing
to
is
keep
open.
notes, so I thought I missed it.
No, I didn't say the words, the hearing is
I
open,
miss
my
a
fault.
lot, so.
So, yes, sir.
In the chance that somebody is watching online, may I just throw up a map on the screen really quick and be able to point out to?
Oh, by all means.
Where this is?
By all means,
Okay.
that would be very useful. You can do that with your magic wand, do it.
So the property that we're talking about right now for the Caribou Solar Tower LLC is out on the west end of town on Washburn Road. And as has been talked about already, is located just to the west. We've already talked about that. So the property that's there runs between Washburn Road and the Caribou Stream. The property lines for this ground kind of run back behind the packing sheds. And as was indicated by Mr. Murchison, there's a split zoning on the property. The area that's right behind the sheds is zone R3. And the other,
So the adjoining zone on that one lot, adjoining the packing plant is an I-1 zone.
I1.
And then as you proceed westerly, it turns into an R3 for probably 2/3 of the property.
Probably more than that, I would say, yeah. So this is the property that we're talking about, and where they want to locate this large facility, it would occupy all of this field.
Yes, I don't know if you're sharing your screen on the Zoom meeting.
I didn't share it through the Zoom meeting, but it's being sent out through the internet. Let me share my screen so you can see it as
That's
well.
fine, I understand where it is. That's okay.
Either way, it's gonna show up just a second.
So we also have a colored map. I don't know if we can see it on at least the TV. So it's the area here with the I-1 zone incorporating the broccoli packing facility. And then again, the split zone from map 7 lot 32, just to the west of that.
We'll get it worked out.
Yep. If we want to go down through the checklist of the concept plan review criteria, the first is name and address of the owner of record and applicant, and I believe that's fully apparent.
Could we back up? Do you mind
Sure.
if we back up? I noticed on the very front page, the tax map number is wrong. It should be 7 and not 4.
How'd that happen? It was 7 on the original
Right.
application.
And I noticed on the next page, total area or acreage of parcel reads 57, and the total area or acreage to be developed reads 20. If you look at the map and you look at the diagram of how much of that lot the array is taking up, it doesn't look like those numbers are right. Because that array looks like it takes up a much greater percentage of that plot, of the lot, than what's indicated there. What's indicated on the application is 20 acres out of a total of 57, which is less than half the lot. And the solar array, as you lay it out on the land, is clearly much greater than half. So I'm not really sure if that's an important distinction, if that's something important that we need to look into. The only thing that I thought
Well,
of
the
is
lot-
like, if there are building standards for rural lots, sometimes there are percentages of, how much percentage of that lot can you fill with a structure? Can you occupy with a structure? It's something we need to look into because I just don't know. I didn't have time to go and look. So for I-1 and R3, that's a question. And are they compliant with that standard?
So rough measurement, using the aerial photo, it's about 20 acres, so we'll just need to confirm.
The 57 might be a little high.
It's an odd shape towards the south part of the
Yeah.
project because it goes to the Caribou stream.
The lot goes all the way down to the stream and over here.
So it's an irregular shape at the bottom, so it could be, put that up to more acres than what it seems like.
Okay.
I can tell you that it probably is close to 50 to 57.
That's fine, just something to verify. It just struck me as something that didn't look right.
Something I do every day is.
Okay, that was it for the upfront stuff. Thanks.
No problem. So, back to the criteria. Name of the proposed development, that's clear. Names and addresses of the property owners within 500 feet. Did we get that list?
Yes. My apologies, it didn't make it into your package.
That's okay.
When I created the list, I handed it to Denise, so we get our letters out. And I didn't recapture it today. So if you'd
That's
like
all
to see
right.
it, I do have it.
We did get the list.
And that was within the 14-day notification requirement?
Correct.
Good.
Copy the deed, I've seen that. Names and addresses of all consultants. Well, you can, I don't think they gave us a list, but you can pull out that based on the other documents that have been provided in terms of consulting engineers and engineering companies. Now, one thing we didn't get is a complete set of plans to include the boundary survey. I think that's in the deed. Stormwater management, erosion control, finish grading plan, site improvement details, if any. Building elevations, I think, is NA. There isn't going to be a building. But some of that stuff in that piece of the checklist is still outstanding. We better have it at the next session of the hearing.
Now, I do have a question on the words boundary survey. Does that require an actual survey?
There was a survey done, yes. Dale Blackstone did it.
Okay, his name was listed on the front, but I don't see any survey.
I didn't include it because it didn't include any bounds. It was a very rough sketch of the and it was like a computer-generated sketch from what I had, so I didn't really, it didn't name, the property pins so it had a lot of lines on it with no information, so I didn't include it.
Now, do we, also I noted on this that we don't have in this package, and I think we're going to need it because it's close to the stream, what are those floodplain plots? And what is the official wetland plot for that area? Because down near the bottom of the lot, you've got that stream, and I have no idea how that floods or that doesn't flood in the springtime or...
That would be a stream protection area, so 75 feet from the stream.
And they say they are within 75.
No, I said,
They checked it on the front of their application. They are within the 75 feet of the stream.
they did.
So they are within the shoreline zoning, so we have to pay attention to that.
Is it in the flood zone? No. Is what they said.
General information, third line down.
Well, what page are you on?
Second page of the application. Next. No, there you go.
All right. Careful of that, yes. Is it within 250 feet of a normal high water line or wetland, or within 75 feet of any stream? And that yes doesn't necessarily mean that they're within 75 feet of any stream. They could be within 250 feet of a normal high water line. A very badly worded question.
Of a lake, pond, or river, which doesn't exist anywhere near the lot, so it has to be a stream. And you can see by the
But they're not.
map that there's a stream there.
Yeah, but they're not anywhere near it. I don't know why they said yes,
No, you don't
unless
think
they
they're-
misread the question.
We'll see if we can clarify that one.
Well, and that's my concern, just to make sure they're well out of the shoreline zoning ordinance area, so we don't have to go into that.
Mr. Hare, you're familiar with that piece of land. Doesn't,
I am, I'm just, the question itself is any portion of the property. Are you talking about the project itself?
No, it says, you're right, it's the property, which, yes,
The stream itself, or just any portion of the property?
It abuts the stream.
the property abuts the stream, but the project does not.
However, that property, I am very familiar with it, there's a gravel pit in the back side of it. And where that pit starts and where the pit ends, there's at least another 75 feet before the stream.
Yeah, the scale on the first picture shows, yeah, thank you. Yeah, the scale on the picture shows maybe 200 feet from the stream.
Yeah, I don't think
What it
that's
looks
going to
me
be an
is
issue.
They're not going anywhere near that gravel pit that's in the back.
Good.
The majority of the project's going to be up on the grassland.
Yep,
I think I'm clear on that one.
very good. So for the map, for the plans, for completeness, we should have overlays of, any wetland or floodplain lines, so that we can see that the project is anywhere near those areas.
Well, if you have a particular need, make sure Denise knows what it is.
Okay, it'll be in the notes of the meeting minutes.
Yeah, and there are no wetlands there.
Good.
I did check that.
All right.
Graphic scale in north arrow, I saw it. There is a north arrow on one of the maps that was submitted, either in the use application or in the site design review application. Location and dimensions of any existing or proposed easements and copies. I didn't see any proposed easements.
I saw in the deed
In the deed, there is
an
some, yeah.
exception for a pole line easement. Do we know where that is on this map?
That's the pole line that comes into the substation from the south.
Right, so that should be marked on the map somewhere, where that easement
It
is.
comes right in there.
Okay. So we'll make a note that that should be marked on the map, the easement.
Okay, I'm not even sure C is applicable. Name, registration number, and seal of land surveyor who prepared the plan. This is not a subdivision plan, and I'm not sure that that's even applicable.
Well, so we talked about that earlier. So a boundary survey is required. And so the land has been surveyed by Blackstone. So the plan should show that survey, and it should appear with a signature and seal of
No,
the
there may
surveyor.
not be a plan, that we know who did that, he did the boundary survey, but there may not be a plan that's gonna have a registered engineer's seal on it.
What about the design of the solar panel and the structure and the screws? That should be in a plan.
Yeah.
We'll make sure that it's on the final plans.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
I think this darn checklist is too open to interpretation. So much of it seems to me personally to be aimed at subdivisions. We're not doing a subdivision. I'm gonna check it off. All property boundaries, I think, yeah, we know what they are.
The zoning designations should probably be shown on the map. Because that was a question I had as I was looking at this, and I couldn't get it from the combination of this and that. Where exactly the zones.
Oh, it's right there. It's on this page, which is part of the initial proposal.
That's illegible. I can't even
Well,
see that.
it's illegible in the package. It's not necessarily illegible in what we have available in
Okay,
the
I'll make my
office.
comments and then go into the record for the minutes and
I don't want this to turn into a nitpicking session for a project that's clearly worth doing. Size, shape, and location of existing proposed buildings, there aren't going to be any. Access for emergency vehicles.
So on our other solar project, we had a question about.
We're going to have to have the fire chief take a look
Right.
at it, and
Yeah.
he wound up having no comment, but all this other stuff about loading areas and walkways and curb cuts is not applicable.
We have shared that with both the fire chief and the police chief. And the one comment I've got so far regarding was from the police chief, and it was the ATV snowmobile trail. And they're still allowing access for that to pass through.
Oh, yeah. It'll pass by.
Haven't heard from the fire chief yet.
Location and names of streets and right-of-way within 200 feet. We know what they are.
And so again, the pole line easement ought to be shown on the map somewhere, so it's clear.
Proposed finished grades. I don't think there's going to be any finished grades. But you made a point earlier about stormwater runoff. That probably should at least be addressed.
So the concern is, well, it's not even a concern, it's a question. So you have a massive array of these solar panels all at an angle, and so they're effectively these huge long lines of roof. You know, so the water's going to hit it, and it's going to come off, and it's going to fall. And what is that going to do to the ground below it? Is it going to form little rivers, and is it going to end up flowing and then down to the stream? Is there going to be erosion? We don't know. I don't think it's been looked at. So I raised that issue before the meeting, and I think it ought to just be highlighted for them to take a look at and answer if there are any concerns there.
I sincerely hope that for the June meeting, we have somehow the ability to have the engineers here to address these things.
We should be able to do the Zoom at least.
Yeah.
And have the plans.
I'm a little surprised that they're not at least here by Zoom tonight.
The Zoom information was shared out, but we're having issues with Zoom, so they might not be able to.
I don't think there's going to be any off-site stormwater management facilities. I'm going to indicate that's NA.
You know, unless there's something that's gonna happen, you know, for that rainfall on the roofs. I don't know. That'll be addressed with the first comment.
Item M is very pertinent to a subdivision. I do not believe it's at all pertinent to this project.
Can we go back to J?
Wow.
So, I noticed in the deed that there is a right to install sewer pipes, and I just wanted to verify that there's no intention of running any kind of sewer service for any reason.
I do not believe they're gonna have any kind of service building there.
And that was just a question. I didn't see any service building or any such facility at all.
In reading through the specs, I didn't.
Standard wording in deeds comes through, it maybe raises flags,
Yeah,
but
well, that's not standard wording. That was a specific exception in the deed to have the right to run a sewer line.
That might be due to the fact that there was concept of a proposed subdivision there many years
Yeah,
ago.
that could be, and that followed the deed.
yeah, oh yeah, all that
That's-
stuff follows the deeds. Landscape buffer screens, plantings, I don't think there's any planned.
I didn't see any proposed.
Outdoors,
We don't have a standard for that.
no. If,
There will be a fence,
Oh, there will be.
and that's by state regulation.
Oh,
oh yeah,
yeah, they didn't mention a fence. So that's L. So we'll mark the K as NA.
I think so,
Okay.
yeah. But you're right, L needs to be addressed. Fencing. I don't think M is applicable. And proposed signage, I don't think there's going to be any signage, if they're smart.
Yeah, there's none proposed. So we think M is NA.
I do.
Okay.
Prove me wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. Is there anyone else in the room aware of any possible issues with wetlands or floodplains or historic sites or wildlife habitats?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I've walked that property years ago.
But I grew up there.
Couldn't
It's
find
never
any
even
fish
been a
in the
potato
stream,
field.
didn't go back.
It probably dries up pretty much in the summer, doesn't it?
So, yeah,
Pretty
big
dry.
time. All right. Without objection, or maybe, unless there are objections, is the right way to say that. I am going to recess this hearing until the June meeting, at which time we would hope to be able to do the site design review,
Final?
the final,
Okay.
which means they need to be here with their drawings and any of the things that you noted tonight. Does anyone have any further comments? Then the hearing is recessed. On the agenda, there's to be another hearing for probably a smaller solar development on Algren Road. Notice has gone out about the hearing, so we will open the hearing at 6:12. But I would inform the board and the listening public that some new data has come to light, and they're probably not really prepared to go forward with this thing right now without additional data. So on the advice of the manager, I'm going to immediately recess the hearing until more data is developed. The purpose of doing that is to avoid having to re-advertise the thing when it comes up again. So I guess we're recessed at 6:13.
So Mr. Chair, we're going to resume the public hearing on June 11th at the next planning board meeting.
For Ogren Road?
For the Caribou Solar Power LLC.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay, very good.
Clarify that that's the intent as well for the Oregon Road.
Oh, I don't, yeah, sure, that's the intent unless, unless they're not ready, in which case we'll postpone it again. But sure, love to hear them. Item 4 on the agenda, new business. The first one that comes up is the proposed medical marijuana dispensary at the building of the Warehouse Bar and Grill.
So we left this in the package, and that really the conversation is ended here. We're talking to the developer, and going through our code book, we found that there are a couple issues with such a business going in that area. One, in the city of Caribou, we do not do retail sales of any kind of marijuana by code. So that
Well, medical dispensary is not retail sale.
yes, but when I followed up with this business, they indicated that their business would be a for-profit,
Ah,
and they run these businesses around the state. They've got several. So, and then also looking at zoning qualifications for such a facility, it's really too close to the nearest house of worship. So it should be 500 feet, and we could only find about 369 feet from premise to premise. So it really eliminated that area from that kind of development. And we spoke to Mr. Wright about that, and he understands. And a follow-up conversation with the developer, they're considering reaching out to the city to see if we could entertain opting into the city to the state's laws. The city of Caribou has not opted in to the marijuana legislation as a must in order to facilitate sales, at least retail sales of marijuana. Right now, we only do medical caregivers, and I forget the terminology for the dispensary on Route 1. So,
right.
and that's really all I have to say about that venture.
So where's the council going with that opt-in?
There's been no contact to this point. This just happened today, a lot of it. So my conversation with the developer would be, if you're interested in input from our council, they would need to be addressed, so that they should address the council to see what could be done. If the council opts in to the state program, that can be done by an act of our legislative body, or it could go to a vote. And then we would have to sit and we would have to come up with an ordinance and codes to allow this kind of activity.
So for now, it's a no-go.
And again, it's something that is being struggled with communities all over the state. So
Oh,
we're
no,
not alone here.
Nobody's got a permit anywhere. Right, yeah, because they keep finding more roadblocks. I was personally wondering whether they would have met the 500-foot limit in terms of distance to a school. They're pretty close.
From the school, I think would just be
Yeah,
probably closer to 600 feet.
okay.
Premise
Because
to premise.
that's in the state statute anyway.
And I checked, if you measure over the road, it's almost a quarter mile by the time you drive from the parking lot out through,
Yeah.
but it's not. It says specifically in our code book, premise to premise, so as the crow flies.
Okay, enough of that. So as a side note, though, I'm just sorry to see that the warehouse found it necessary to close their doors. Was a popular spot for many people in this community. No communications. What do you got, Ken?
So I'll make some new communications together with a quick staff report.
Good.
Basically, we've been busy. working through my office and Penny Thompson's office, we're working hard and the manager as well, on our blight study. So we've been all over the city, every back road, every corner of the city. We've plotted 3,364 points on a map representing buildings and outbuildings and commercial buildings. And currently pounding away at my workstation, putting the scores to each point, so attributing the data to each point. Already it's apparent in those areas, interestingly enough, that we've talked about already in this idea of a multi-use zone. So those interfaces between our commercial areas and our residential areas are historic. And what we find is that, for instance, these stately houses over here on High Street are in a commercial area, so they don't score well. They're very nice homes, they're well kept, but they don't score well because they're in the wrong zone, wrong use. So that's pretty interesting. So the data's speaking already, and we're not complete. We have found that, yeah, there are blighted areas of the community. By and large, I am encouraged because most people keep a fairly good place. I see a lot of what I've come to call 20/20 homes. So older, well-kept houses with well-kept lots. So that was encouraging as well.
There's 2 or 3 plots down on Route 1 as you enter Caribou that don't
Yes.
look very welcoming right now.
Yes, and springtime is when they really stick out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
So as part of the update also, we spent a good deal of time chasing around garbage. So when the snow goes away, the garbage pops to the top, even in the downtown areas. So we had an issue down at a business right here on Sweden Street. Largely taken care of now, but there's still an issue there. They're storing things without an enclosure. So we're still working with them. We've got a lot of junk vehicles down. We've got complaints. We've got notices of violations out, so it's been very, very busy. And but again, we're working away every day. We've already started in for the season. We've demolished two homes that were dilapidated and have been cited for demolition for a couple of years now. So at the end of Patton Street, we now have a nice area that will become a trailhead for ATV trails, a nice little green park area. We've got a third house slated for demolition, hopefully next week, and that one is located at 66 York Street. Again, a building has been slated for demolition for years now. This particular one had asbestos, so we've already had it abated. And as we move into the season, we might try some new and innovative ways to take care of some of these houses. We've got a couple more that really should come down this season. We're hoping to work with Public Works and be able to haul the stuff with our own equipment instead of realizing that cost from a contractor. So I've been trying to share our good to knows with the board every week. They're kind of fun, and it makes you sit down and think of, okay, what have I done this week?
I liked getting those, and I haven't seen them lately.
Oh, I'll have to make sure you get them. I've been trying to make a point to send them out. So what's happening this spring? We have a new potato storage going on the end of Carroll Street. Dret Farms is building. Nice project.
Where's Carroll Street?
So as you leave Bennett Drive and take a right onto the intersection to Access Highway, it's almost directly across.
Okay.
I
Good.
think that's where they used to call Red Ball in the old days. Also on Carroll Street is the old Agway building, which is now being renovated fully to become the new location of the Bar and Grill restaurant, adding a lot of value to that area.
Yeah, I was swung
Very
by
nice
there
project.
the other day. It looks good.
We'll have a new warehouse for County Electric out on Outer York Street, just beyond the Bursch Carter property. They've already started scratching around out there as well. We have a new switching house is going to be put down by Emera at the site of the power generation plant. So they'll be taking their switching equipment out of our tax-acquired building and putting it into a new container building.
Is there any site design work that has to be done by us on that, or is, okay?
So there are things going on. I know people are a little depressed, and this time is kind of uncertain for people with the COVID-19 event. But things are moving along. I won't steal the manager's thunder, but I think we might do a soft opening on Monday. Is that what we're going to call it?
That's what we're planning right now.
Soft opening of,
So
City Hall.
good.
City Hall has been closed to the public. We've been here working away every day, but the public has not been able to come in. We've been working around it best we can, but now we'll be able to have people back in the building. Some areas by appointment, some areas will be approachable, for instance, the clerk's office to do registrations and things like that. We'll have to abide by social distancing regulations, but we'll be back open to the public.
That's very encouraging. Any comments from anyone? Questions? Do we still have our long-distance members present? Looks that way. All right, excuse me, pardon me for stumbling. Comprehensive plan update. What's that about, Ken?
Well, I kind of alluded to it, is I'm going through our blight mapping. It occurred to me that this is going to be the stuff that our proposed land use map will be made of. So as I'm doing this other work, I'm keeping in mind the comprehensive plan, which we're still working on. So things like proposed land use, our ultimate zoning map, whether or not we use the mixed use zoning techniques or district. I will add that I was approached by a business here in town that is interested in the concept of mixed use. They have a large development going on, and they have a complementary use, which although would be complementary to their business, it would be a commercial activity in a residential zone. So they're wondering if that mixed use technique would work in their instance, and they're very interested in bringing that forward to see if they can be zoned that way.
Mm-hmm.
That just happened yesterday, so.
Little, not public yet.
And really, I just wanted to relate that we haven't forgotten the comprehensive plan. We're still working on it. And in talking with Penny Thompson and things like having, for instance, we don't have an ordinance for a solar array. This is something that's not just a Caribou thing. It's happening all over the state. There's a tsunami of these new projects coming, and no one has all the right tools to work with it.
When I was looking at the land use table that was highlighted for that proposal out on Washburn, the only land use that fits is public utility, and it struck me that, well, gosh, this isn't a public utility. It's a private industry that happens to be selling energy to a public utility.
Yeah, it was a hard fit to make on that one definition.
Yeah,
And to not have any standards as well, plus a very loose definition, and that's the tools we have right now. So I actually had a call from a developer in the southern part of the state. They're dealing with a rural community and doing a solar array, and they were having similar issues. But some of the questions they asked I thought were very interesting. One was that if the developer was fiscally sound enough to be able to complete the project. That's a pretty interesting question to ask. And also what would happen to the installation when it reaches its life's end. So do they take it away? So it's all good conversation.
mm-hmm.
Something to think about, for sure.
It is. And also coming to a town near you is the whole concept of tiny homes or tiny houses. And so in the state of Maine, it's been stymied a little bit because the Maine Department of Transportation has decided, well, they really don't want to register these vehicles over the road. without standards. So it's not a camper that's already registered to be, or built to be running over the highway. This is a house slapped on a set of wheels that's supposed to be kind of semi-portable. We don't have an ordinance here in Caribou for tiny homes per se, but we have been fielding a lot of questions and been treating it more like manufactured housing.
Yeah.
So they would have to come and place their home on a slab or an improved pad. They would have to hook up to utilities if they were available. They would have to otherwise have a private septic field if not. So those kinds of standards.
Mhm.
Again, not just Caribou, everyone's struggling with this new concept of, oh, we want to live in a 200 square foot house.
Well, it's certainly easy to clean.
Yes, but there's egress and ingress issues, you know, size of windows. There's a long list of things to think about that, the calls I'm getting are from all over. I'm from Massachusetts. I'm thinking about buying a piece of land from X person, and we're gonna build our tiny house, or we're gonna put an Amish building and live in that, or we're gonna.
Ooh.
So, and my comment generally speaking, this is a real estate transaction. I said it's a buyer beware market. You need to come and look at that lot or have an agent that you trust view that lot to see if you can apply your house there. That's not really something the city's going to offer up for a service unless we. But you can't come from far away and say you're going to live in an Amish house and
But there are
not
still-
survive your first winter.
There still would be standards for occupancy
Absolutely.
that the city of Caribou would impose. So, you know, how do you do that without published standards? I don't know. It could get sticky.
So and we're doing this comprehensive plan update. And these are things we need to think about.
Yeah.
We're doing our Chapter 13 updates, and these are things that they're happening right now. So
Mm-hmm.
The trouble is, it's going to be fluid forever.
yeah.
Item number 8, Chapter 13, Manager's Minute. By the way, before you get into it, Mr. Marker, nice job. I actually read it this afternoon.
Riveting reading, isn't it?
Oh, it just had me going. Well, we hammered on you for a complete package, and at least you got it to us.
So let me do a screen share real quick.
Excuse me. For the public's benefit, what we're doing is looking at what the work of the city manager has been doing on our Chapter 13 city ordinances, which Chapter 13 is all about zoning. And this is a long, ongoing process that we're nearing completion on, but we're not there yet.
So right now, what we've been able to get through is basically the administrative part of this code. As you look at who's responsible for enforcing this, changing it, how it's applied. And as I was getting into this, I found a lot of redundancy, which I tried to eliminate from the code where I can. And there were some very significant changes that I think need to be made. I'll get into those. I'm not going to walk you through line by line
No.
on this. And so I think most of this is some great nighttime fix of the sleep reading if you really like to read these types of things. Essentially, part of this was looking at the code enforcement officers' responsibilities, what they're going to be involved with as far as issuing permits. We talk about the land use and building permits, that the process that needs to take place in order to issue those, what it means to have a certificate of occupancy, and when we require a certificate of occupancy, and what that means. Essentially, any new construction is supposed to have one. And there are inspections that need to be taking place, and the CEO, code enforcement officer's responsibility to conduct those inspections. We also have language in here about the responsibility to issue notice of violations and the process that we take to issue notices of violation, and the addition of reasonable timeframes in which to correct violations has been added to this. If we wanted to get more specific and say that for certain types of violations, there are 15 days, 30 days, 45 days, we could put that into the code. At this point, I just inserted the reasonable time frame will be determined by the code enforcement officer in order to make those things corrected. As far as violations are concerned, we've made it clear that there are, if you violate the ordinances, that is a violation. I know it seems funny to have to spell those things out in the codes, but this language now makes it very clear that we do consider certain things violations, and as such, there are penalties or processes that we need to follow, or that we will follow to make sure that the codes are being complied with. Having the penalties if there's a violation. I talked with Chief Gahagan about the penalties aspect of this. Currently, just want to highlight this part of it. So currently it says any person, firm, or corporation being the owner, authorized agent, contractor, or having control or use of any structure or premises who violates any of the provisions of these ordinance shall, upon conviction, be fined in accordance with provisions of Title 30A MSR A 4452. So one of the issues that we have is that because of the language the way it's written there, it's only after a conviction can we really levy any penalties. Well, to get a conviction means that you have to go through a process of issuing violations, going to court, involving attorneys, and having a judge determine that they are convicted of the penalty. Now, the way we change this ordinance now is that you are in violation if certain things exist, and if there are penalties, we'll issue a proper notice to correct. If you don't correct it in that time frame, you're considered to be a complete violation, and then we can issue fines. And then the fines, according to Chief Gahagan, would be Class E misdemeanor. And so if they are convicted of that, we can institute fines, and those are outlined by the state code, and that they can be fined as well as imprisoned if it gets that far. Obviously, we don't utilize that heavy hand. We try to work with people and help them and correct things as much as possible. But now we have it spelled out more clearly what penalties are in the ordinance and the processes that we need to go through to get those cured. Under the Board of Appeals, we have we have references to the Board of Appeals in multiple places within the code. What I've done with this write-up now is trying to consolidate that into one place, so we know this is everything that pertains to the Board of Appeals. And the state code actually dictates Board of Appeals and what they can and can't do. And so as I was going through this, part of this was checking the state code versus what our code was telling them that they could do. For instance, under variances, the state code is very clear what cities can and cannot grant variances for. Our code expanded upon that authority, which we cannot do. We have to stay within the bounds that the state regulations give us. I'll show you where that is. Under variances, it was interesting to see that under our current code, somebody could seek a variance from having to pay development fees that are set by the city council. So, in a sense, you have the city council setting fiscal policy, not a land use regulation, but the development code is saying that somebody could go and seek a variance from the appeals board to get a variance from a fiscal policy. That's not what the appeals board is set up for, not the authorities and powers that the state has allowed them to have. Plus, you basically create a group that can undermine council policy, which again is not what we're trying to seek for here, particularly with regards to the simple matter of fees. If somebody wants to appeal their fees, the proper body to do that to is the city council who sets fiscal policy for the city. And so they could certainly go to the council and say, would you change your fee schedule or make allowances within your fee schedule?
Or they could ask for abatement in
Or they
case
could
it's
ask the
of
council,
fees or,
right.
yeah.
But it's still the city council that does it, not a Board of Appeals.
Yes, that's right.
Right. So this language now makes it very clear that the Board of Appeals cannot grant a variance to the fees that might be adopted by
That's
the
smart.
city.
Yeah.
Also, that they cannot grant variances to regulations that might be imposed by other government agencies or building codes to be adopted by the state. Those are rules and regulations that are dictated by, again, powers higher than the city, and we have to abide by those. We can't just say, go to the Board of Appeals and they can grant a variance for most things. We have to abide by those laws. Under Board of Appeals, as far as the process of making an appeal, I found also in the code, we have one section that outlines the appeal process generally, and we have another section under the shoreland zoning that outlines an appeal process, which is almost exactly the same thing. But there were slight differences, and in order to make it very clear which part of the code, we're just saying, this is the one appeal process. When we get to the shoreland zoning part of this code, we'll point to this new variance and appeal process, so you don't have to worry about duplication or minor differences in the codes as we approach those. Again, most of this is just kind of reorganizing. If it's black and white text, that means that it's in the code somewhere, though if you're trying to find it in the code now, it may not be in this particular order. And we're just trying to reorganize and rather than highlight where all of these things are being moved from or to, I'm just showing you.
The end product.
This is close to the end product.
Yeah.
Right? If I made changes, those are the ones that are highlighted.
I appreciate the comments that you put over on the right-hand side, too. They're very helpful.
The standard of review, number 5, again, this is already in the code, this is already in the state code. And so some of this again is just trying to clean it up a little bit. The decisions by the Board of Appeals, that first sentence, striking all of that, it's already outlined in the code up above as far as the process of reform and how they do things. So again, it's trying to just clean it up. There's added language about conflicts of interest. We've already outlined that the planning board handles conflicts of interest a certain way in which the planning board members can vote to determine if there's a conflict. And we're saying here that if there is a situation that arises with the Board of Appeals, I'll just follow the same procedures that the planning board has, since that's already outlined. The paragraph about reconsideration, personally, I have a little concern about the Board of Appeals being able to reconsider their own decision, but I can see that in the current code, it talks about if it's found that there were factual errors or fraud in the deliberations at that point, when it's identified, they can reconsider. I don't have as much concern in those cases that the Board of Appeals might reconsider their decision. I'm a little more concerned that somebody can appeal back to the Board of Appeals their own decision. Really, if somebody is appealing the Board of Appeals decision, it should, through due process, go to somebody else. There should be somebody.
Go to another court. Yeah.
Right, that's gonna be looking at, were things done properly, was there an error made, rather than having things go back for reconsideration. But right now, it's written that the board, they can reconsider, again, if there were factual errors or mistakes regarding facts. But otherwise, it would have to go to the court.
Makes sense to me.
Under variances, so this is where I wanted to just touch on the current code would say that, for instance, this earlier marijuana retail that we were discussing. If we were to look at our land use table, it has in there that certain uses are not permitted or require planning board review. If a use says no on it, our current code says that somebody can come to the Board of Appeals and ask for a variance from the land use table. But in order for the Board of Appeals to, if they feel that, yes, that might be appropriate, then the same applicant has to come back to the planning board and ask for the same variance from the land use table, and also go to the city council and seek that variance from the land use table.
They can't do that as a first step?
It spells out in the current code. If you're gonna get a variance from the use table, you have to go to each of these three bodies.
Board of Appeals first.
Board of Appeals,
And then
planning
back.
board, and the city council.
Okay.
Really what the process is doing is saying, should there be a code amendment?
Should there be a what?
Code amendment.
Code amendment, right.
Really, if that use would be appropriate in that zone, and everybody feels that way, then you probably ought to just go through a code amendment process, a regular ordinance adoption process, where we have public hearings and review of the ordinances, and it gets adopted in the regular process. That's not a variance.
This is a revision.
It's a code revision,
Yeah.
is really what it is. Also, under the state code does not allow appeals boards to grant use variances. So we cannot authorize our appeals board to consider use variances, even though it's in our code that we can. So this is one section where I've stricken out references to these use variances. If it ever comes up again, we would just simply say, if you want to change the code, here's the process to try to change the code. And then we would come to the planning board, the city council, there'd be public hearings.
That makes sense.
And we're not trying to get all three bodies involved in this process.
Right.
And the variance to start with is not an easy process because you have to approve a hardship. So yes, I want to do a variance. This is why it's causing me a hardship. Is it economic? Is it livelihood? Is
Yeah.
it something like that? It's not an easy thing to prove. We don't see many.
No.
So that's a lot of the cleanup under the variance section is, again, looking at trying to clean up the references to what the state code says can be done, and what we were saying we would allow, and making sure that they're consistent. So that's the major elements to the changes that have come to you tonight. We've now got I've started pulling in the definition changes that Ken's been working on for quite some time, so I'll go through those. And we're really starting to now get into the nuts and bolts of the regulations themselves. Once the administration side is cleaned up, we can move on to the meat of the matter.
It should be easier.
So on page 21, item C, when you talk about the undue hardship, and you reference Title 30A, are those words the same as the ones that you've stricken out? Or is
Yes.
it, they're the same?
Right.
Okay. The words look familiar.
Progress, progress, progress. I like it.
Very nice.
Question for Dennis. As we speak, does Caribou have a functioning Board of Appeals?
Have they, yes, but have they ever met? No.
Okay. Well, years ago, it was made up of code enforcement officers from 3-4 communities. Is that still?
It remains.
It was
Yeah,
talk
it's the
about
same
that.
way. That's the way it is now.
That's the way it is now?
Yep.
Because, I mean, many years ago, I was a member of the zoning board of appeals. We had our own entity. And I think in 3 years, we probably met twice, but hence the reason for disbanding. Okay, so that hasn't changed that much in 20 years.
The first community I worked in had a very active Board of Appeals. Of course, it was a 100,000 population city where every little thing got nitpicked and every developer had an angle they wanted to throw at it. But really, if your codes are written with some reasonable flexibility and some understanding, there's very little reason to have variances. And I think our code does have some of that already in place. Hence, there's been very few applications to there.
Well, and Bob brought up a good point earlier when we were going through that application, that step-by-step thing, and how it seemed kind of so nitpicky to go through. And we had talked before about trying to streamline that a little
Yeah,
bit. And I've always said if you're going to have a process, then we owe it to the citizens to follow that process so it's consistent for everybody, right? And so you nitpick through. If you want to change the process, then this would be the time to get into that and start looking at it before Chapter 13 firms up and goes down the road.
And we have been looking at process already. And some of that would include, when we talk about these checklists of things that have to be on the
Yeah.
plans,
I
just have our CEO go through the plans, are they there or not there? The
yeah.
planning board doesn't have to get involved.
That's my thing too. I don't see where the board should take its time to go through those checklists when that's the CEO's 9-to-5 job.
In fact, the CEO is charged to do that review prior to bringing it to the
Right.
planning board to make sure that the application is complete. That's on the CEO's job.
Right, so I don't think we should be redoing what
Yeah, I
should have
agree.
already been done.
So, under the current code, a site design review application goes through the CEO, and it also comes through the planning board for a determination of completeness under the current code. So, yes, while Ken can do that, Ken and I could go through those. We can make a determination, but then we have to kick it to the planning board for you to say, is this a complete application?
Well, some of it's interpretation, just like around the table today. Some of it's interpretation. Is it needed or isn't it needed? Is it applicable or is it not applicable?
Right.
So that isn't necessarily bad. Is not necessarily bad where you have two levels of review. I don't mind that. I don't mind getting something that's been reviewed by CEO and you look at it quickly and you say, yeah, everything's here. Or wait a minute, what about this?
But,
And that
yeah,
way we're not reviewing the whole thing.
I think that in terms of the checklist, if CEO has found that these things are existing, then the checklist should come to us with those points already checked off.
Yeah.
so that we don't have to go
And
back
all
and
the
ask the
elements
same
of
question.
and all the
Yeah.
elements of the application included in the packet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're on the same page, just a different paragraph.
Getting there.
Thank you, Mr. Marker. You're doing a super job, and I know it's tough work, and I'm glad it's you and not me, because I don't think I could juggle that many different concepts at
Are you
once.
at a point now where you're willing to take input and edits to this? Or do you want to work on it for a little while longer?
Anything that I've handed to you, feel free to make suggestions.
On this here?
Sure.
Okay. Can you provide an electronic format?
Yes.
So I can turn word change, track changes on, and I gotta tell you, I can't see much.
No, Denise, could-
Really, really a good job.
I'm sure Denise could send you that, and then you could have at it.
Keeping it simple. Nice.
If you can.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of things happened over the past 20, 30 years where the city of Caribou just threw stuff at Chapter 13 because they felt they needed it. And then state codes got revised and nobody paid attention to it locally. And there's a lot of catch-up going on, which you're doing a great job at, to bring us in compliance with state code. I, for one, appreciate it very much. Any other business to come before this board tonight?
I would offer one more thing I forgot in my, my staff report. I did use the planning board's name. We went back to revisit Mr. Duplessis on the Van Buren Road. We had further complaints out there regarding his progress as far as putting a fence up, cleaning the property and so forth. So we wrote a nice letter, and I went out and presented it to Mr. Duplessis and had that conversation where this was the agreement you made with the planning board. You got 30 days to comply. So that's like 2 weeks out now.
Okay. Next meeting will be June 11th. That's the regular time at this place. We'll see at that time if we still have to do Zoom. I imagine we might. Any further comments, questions? Motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, Denise, Mr. Corvo moved, and Dan Bagley seconded for the adjournment. Roll call vote for those in favor. Mr. McElwain?
In favor?
Drew? David?
Yes.
Aye.
Dan? Myself, yes. And Denise?
You have to get Amanda's vote.
Or Amanda, excuse me. Maybe she's left.
Favor.
Okay, thank you. The meeting is adjourned. Hit the buttons.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Am I gonna name your family?
Denise, did you catch everything?